The quantum scope's display flickered as Kira Patel adjusted her position atop the ruins of New Delhi's Lotus Temple. 3 days without movement had left her muscles screaming, but veterans of the Voidborn knew stillness meant survival. Through her enhanced optics, she watched the massive alien vessel hover above the city's central district, its crystalline surface rippling with energy shields that had, until now, proved impenetrable to every weapon in Earth's arsenal. The Voidborn had arrived 18 months ago, their fleet of crystalline ships darkening skies worldwide. They came not as conquerors but as ascenders, beings so convinced of their evolutionary and technological superiority that they viewed it as their cosmic duty to elevate lesser species to their level. Those who refused ascension were deemed developmentally stunted and forcibly converted or eliminated. "Target approaching," whispered the AI in her neural implant. Calculating variables. Kira's augmented vision zoomed in on the command ship's landing platform. A delegation of Voidborn emerged, tall, ethereal beings with crystalline growths protruding from their bodies like organic armor. Their leader, High Ascender Zeroth, moved with characteristic fluid grace. Intelligence suggested he carried a prototype of their next-generation shield generator, technology that had cost countless resistance fighters their lives to confirm. Multiple shield layers detected, the AI reported. Primary harmonic frequency at 17.4 THz, secondary at 19.8. Kira made microscopic adjustments to her quantum rifle while processing the data stream. The weapon represented humanity's latest breakthrough, a hybrid of human engineering and salvaged Voidborn technology. Its heart contained a quantum uncertainty chamber that allowed its rounds to exist in multiple states simultaneously, theoretically allowing them to bypass Voidborn shields through quantum tunneling. In theory, no one had ever successfully penetrated their defensive technology. Their shields operated on principles that seemed to defy physics itself, but Kira had spent months studying their patterns. She'd noticed something everyone else missed: the shields weren't perfect. They had to maintain quantum coherence across their entire surface, requiring precise harmonic frequencies that changed constantly. Impossible to predict, unless you understood how the Voidborn thought. Their technology, like their society, was built on patterns of mathematical beauty. The shield frequencies weren't random, they followed an elaborate progression based on what the Voidborn considered aesthetically perfect numbers. Temporal field at 30% power, the AI warned. 10 minutes remaining. Kira made her final calculations. The shot would need to thread an impossible needle, striking precisely when the shield harmonics aligned in a pattern allowing quantum tunneling. The margin for error was measured in picoseconds. Shield intersection point identified, the AI announced. Calculating firing solution. Probability of success, 0.021%. Kira allowed herself a slight smile. Never tell me the odds. The quantum rifle hummed almost imperceptibly as its uncertainty chamber spun up to full power. Through her scope, Kira could see the shield harmonics dancing in complex patterns, waiting for that perfect moment of alignment. Shield intersection in 3, 2, 1. Kira exhaled half a breath and squeezed the trigger. The quantum round existed in a superposition of states as it left the barrel, its trajectory both certain and uncertain until observation collapsed its waveform. For a fraction of a second, it existed everywhere and nowhere along its path to the target. Time seemed to slow as she watched the round approach the High Ascender's shields. The iridescent barrier rippled, trying to adjust to the quantum anomaly approaching it, but the round was already threading through microscopic gaps in the shield's harmonic pattern, exploiting the brief picoseconds when quantum tunneling became possible. The High Ascender had just enough time to look surprised before the round resolved itself in the center of his crystalline mass. The perfect mathematical patterns of his shields tried to compensate, cascading through increasingly desperate configurations, but the disruption was too severe, the pattern too broken. The shield collapsed in a spectacular display of quantum backflow, the energy release shattering windows for half a kilometer. For several seconds, nothing moved. The remaining Voidborn stared in shocked silence at their fallen leader, their supposedly perfect technology having failed. The impossible had happened. Then all hell broke loose. Alarm signals screamed across the district as the command ship's defense systems went into overdrive, energy weapons firing randomly at threats their sensors insisted couldn't exist. The human prisoners being led to conversion centers seized their chance, overwhelming their shocked guards. Temporal field critical, the AI warned. Collapse imminent. Kira was already moving, breaking down her rifle with practiced efficiency. The shot had proven her theory, void-born shields could be penetrated. Their technology wasn't perfect. They weren't gods. They could be beaten. As she disappeared into the ruins of New Delhi, Kira allowed herself a grim smile. The void-born had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed their technology made them invulnerable, that humanity's primitive weapons could never harm them. They had forgotten one of humanity's most dangerous traits: give humans an impossible problem, and they'll find a way to solve it. The war for Earth was far from over, but for the first time since the Void-born arrived, humanity had hope. And sometimes, hope was the deadliest weapon of all. The underground resistance laboratory hummed with activity beneath the ruins of Mumbai's ancient caves. Dr. James Rodriguez hunched over a workbench, his weathered hands steady as he examined the captured void-born shield generator through a quantum microscope. Around him, salvaged alien technology merged with human ingenuity in a desperate bid to understand their enemy's weaknesses. The quantum tunneling effect shouldn't be possible, he muttered, not looking up as Kira entered the lab. Even with our understanding of their shield harmonics, the probability of successful penetration was infinitesimal. He gestured to the holographic models floating above his workstation, showing the complex mathematical patterns of void-born shield technology. Yet here we are, Kira replied, setting her rifle case on a nearby table. High Ascender Zerotha's death proved it works. Now we need to replicate it. She pulled up the shot data from her neural implant, the information streaming into the lab's holographic display system. James's eyes widened as he studied the data. These patterns, they're not just mathematical. They're musical. He manipulated the holographic display, transforming the shield frequencies into audio waves. A haunting, alien melody filled the lab. The Void-born don't just see their technology as functional, he continued, excitement building in his voice. They see it as art. Their shields aren't just defensive systems, they're symphonies of mathematical harmony. And like any symphony, Kira added, beginning to understand, they follow specific rules of composition. Exactly. James pulled up more data, comparing shield patterns from different void-born vessels. Look at these harmonics. They're following something similar to the golden ratio, but more complex. It's not just about protection, it's about achieving what they consider perfect mathematical beauty. Before Kira could respond, the lab's security systems blared to life. Red emergency lights pulsed as alerts flooded their neural networks. Multiple void-born vessels detected, the facility AI announced. New signature type. They're using some form of quantum resonance scanning. They're adapting, James said grimly, already moving to secure critical data. They must have analyzed Zerotha's shield failure. They're looking for quantum technology signatures. The facility shook as the first void-born weapons struck the surface above. The aliens weren't being subtle anymore, they were burning through the Earth itself to reach the lab. Time to evacuation point? Kira asked, helping James gather essential equipment. 4 minutes at best. Their weapons will breach the outer barriers in 3. Get the shield analysis to back up Site Beta, Kira ordered, already moving to defensive positions. I'll hold them here. The ceiling erupted as void-born shock troops burst through, their crystalline armor glowing with modified shield patterns. They moved with inhuman grace, but Kira could see the difference in their defenses. The mathematical perfection was now interwoven with deliberate irregularities. Your previous success was an anomaly, their leader announced, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. We have corrected the flaw in our artistic expression. Kira's neural implant analyzed the new shield patterns. The Voidborn had indeed adapted, making their harmonics more chaotic and harder to predict. But as she watched the patterns shift and flow, she realized something crucial: they couldn't abandon their fundamental principles entirely. Even chaos, to the Voidborn, had to follow certain mathematical rules. She fired 3 shots in rapid succession, her quantum rounds phasing through seemingly random points in the Voidborn shields. The aliens had made their defenses more complex, yes, but in doing so, they'd actually created more potential points of failure. Each attempt at irregularity introduced new harmonics that could be exploited. The shock troops fell before they could react, their perfect defenses shattered by the very complexity meant to protect them. The remaining Voidborn opened fire, filling the corridor with crystalline energy bolts, but Kira was already moving, her neural implant calculating trajectories and shield patterns faster than conscious thought. "Fall back," the Voidborn commander ordered. "Reconfigure shields to," his words ended as Kira's final round found its mark. "James," she sub-vocalized through the lab's comm system. "Tell me you got something useful from those new shield patterns." "Better than that," he replied. "Their adaptations confirmed our theory. The Voidborn can't help but follow mathematical patterns, it's fundamental to their entire civilization. The more complex they make their shields, the more points of vulnerability they create," Kira finished. "They're so obsessed with perfection that they can't comprehend the strength in imperfection." As she reached the evacuation tunnels, Kira allowed herself a moment of reflection. The Voidborn had come to Earth expecting to find primitives in need of elevation. Instead, they had found humans, messy, unpredictable, and absolutely refusing to follow the rules of what should be possible. The facility trembled as she disappeared into the escape tunnels, leaving behind a trail of quantum mines. Above, the Voidborn commanders were already composing reports to their superiors, trying to explain how their perfect technology had failed again. They had come to Earth expecting to teach humanity about perfection. Instead, they were about to learn a harsh lesson about the power of imperfection. The abandoned peak of Mount Kilimanjaro had become humanity's most unlikely sniper school. Kira watched through her quantum scope as 30 recruits lay motionless in the snow, their rifles trained on holographic targets displaying simulated Voidborn shield patterns. The thin air at this altitude helped mask their quantum signatures from enemy sensors, while the mountain's natural electromagnetic fields provided additional cover. "Remember," she transmitted through their neural network, "the shields aren't random. They're symphonies of mathematics. Your job isn't to overpower them, it's to find the dissonance in their harmony." The recruits represented humanity's best hope, former Special Forces operators, competition marksmen, and combat veterans from every corner of the globe. But hitting a target through Voidborn shields required more than just marksmanship. It demanded an understanding of quantum mechanics and an ability to think in patterns the aliens considered impossible. "Target acquired," reported Raj, a former Indian Army sniper. "Shield harmonics aligned at, wait, pattern shifted." "That's intentional," Kira replied. "The Voidborn are evolving their defenses. They're introducing controlled chaos into their shield matrices, but they can't help following their own rules. Look for the underlying pattern, not just the surface disruption." The mountain air crackled with energy as detection nets shimmered in the stratosphere, searching for human resistance. Voidborn patrol ships drifted through the clouds below, their crystalline forms refracting the African sunlight. But even here, in one of Earth's last unconquered spaces, change was coming. "Priority alert from command," the tactical AI announced in their neural networks. "Operation Ghostmaker is greenlit." Multiple Voidborn command ships detected approaching major population centers worldwide. "They're planning a coordinated ascension wave." Kira's heart raced. They weren't ready, the recruits needed more time, more training. But the Voidborn weren't giving them that option. "Show me," she ordered. The tactical display bloomed in her augmented vision. Dozens of massive void-borne vessels were moving into position above Earth's cities, their shields resonating with new, more complex patterns. But something was different about their formation. They're not just planning mass ascension, she realized. This is a trap. They're expecting us to try something. Dr. Rodriguez's voice joined the neural link. Confirmed. Analysis shows they've modified their shield configurations based on previous encounters. They're using rotating harmonic frequencies, making it nearly impossible to predict alignment points. Nearly impossible isn't the same as impossible, Kira countered. And they're still bound by their own rules of mathematical beauty. She turned to address the recruits. This is it. Everything we've trained for. Operation Ghostmaker begins in 30 minutes. Primary targets are void-borne command ships above New York, London, Moscow, Beijing, and Tokyo. The recruits moved with practiced precision, checking their quantum rifles and synchronizing their neural implants. Each had been chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to think creatively, to see patterns where others saw chaos. Remember, Kira continued, the Void-born expect us to attack. They've prepared for it. What they haven't prepared for is how humans fight when everything is on the line. We don't need perfect shots, we need impossible ones. The quantum rifles hummed to life as their uncertainty chambers spun up. Each weapon had been modified based on data from previous encounters, their targeting systems now capable of predicting shield harmonic patterns with unprecedented accuracy. Multiple contacts, the tactical AI warned. Void-borne escort vessels moving to defensive positions. They're deploying some kind of new sensor array. Kira studied the data. The Void-borne had indeed learned from their losses, creating a web of overlapping sensor fields designed to detect quantum signatures. But in doing so, they'd actually given away their greatest weakness. Look at their defensive formation, she pointed out to the recruits. It's mathematically perfect, concentric rings of protection, each layer's shields harmonizing with the others. They can't help themselves. Even their tactics have to follow their ideas of perfect symmetry. Through her scope, Kira watched the massive Void-borne command ship above Tokyo. Its surface rippled with increasingly complex shield patterns, a desperate attempt to prevent the impossible from happening again. But the aliens didn't understand that complexity wasn't the answer, their obsession with mathematical perfection had become a prison of their own making. Operation Ghostmaker is a go, command announced through their neural links. All teams, execute on my mark. Kira took a deep breath, her augmented mind already calculating firing solutions. The Void-borne had come to Earth believing their technology made them gods. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in perfection, but in their ability to embrace chaos, to find beauty in imperfection, and to achieve the impossible through sheer determination. Remember, she transmitted one final time to her recruits, we're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting to show the universe that humanity doesn't need to be elevated. We just need a chance to show what we can do. The command channel crackled. 3, 2, 1, mark. Across the globe, 30 quantum rifles fired simultaneously. 30 impossible shots, threading through microscopic vulnerabilities in supposedly perfect defenses. 30 moments of chaos introduced into systems of perfect order. And high above Earth's cities, Void-borne command ships began to fall. The success of Operation Ghostmaker had cost the Void-borne dearly, but their response came with terrifying swiftness. Kira studied the holographic readout in the Resistance's new command center, carved deep into the Andes Mountains. The images showed something that made her blood run cold. They're calling them symmetry hunters, Dr. Rodriguez explained, manipulating the hologram to show the new threat in detail. Biomechanical entities specifically engineered to track and eliminate quantum snipers. Their entire crystalline structure is one massive sensor array, able to detect the slightest quantum disturbance. The creatures were beautiful in their alien horror, constantly shifting crystalline forms that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Their bodies were studded with resonance chambers that could detect the microscopic quantum fluctuations caused by uncertainty chambers, making stealth nearly impossible. How many? Kira asked, already calculating potential countermeasures. They've released thousands globally, Rodriguez replied. We've lost contact with resistance cells in Santiago, Mumbai, and Cairo. The hunters don't just track our weapons, they learn from each encounter, adapting their hunting patterns based on human behavior. The command center's quantum shields hummed as they cycled through randomized frequencies, trying to stay ahead of detection. But Kira knew it was only a matter of time. The Voidborn were evolving their strategy, moving away from mass conversion centers to focused hunter-killer operations. Command, priority alert, the tactical AI announced. Multiple symmetry hunter signatures detected approaching our position. They've found a way to track quantum shield harmonics. Kira accessed the external feeds. 3 symmetry hunters were moving through the mountain passes, their crystalline forms refracting the afternoon sunlight into dazzling patterns. They moved with predatory grace, following traces of quantum disturbance like bloodhounds on a scent. Evacuate the science teams, she ordered. Get the research data to backup sites. I'll handle our visitors. You can't fight them conventionally, Rodriguez warned. Their shields are unlike anything we've seen, they don't just block attacks, they absorb and analyze them. Each failed attempt makes them stronger. Kira checked her quantum rifle, making minute adjustments to the uncertainty chamber. Then we'll have to try something unconventional. The Voidborn created these things to counter our tactics, let's show them why adapting to human behavior is harder than they thought. She moved through the facility's outer defenses, her neural implant processing the hunter's movement patterns. They weren't just following standard search protocols, they were anticipating human responses, positioning themselves to counter expected defensive measures. They're not just tracking our quantum signatures, Kira realized. They're predicting where we'll go based on analyzed human combat tactics. Time to show them why predictability is overrated. She fired 3 rapid shots, not at the hunters, but at the mountain snow above them. The quantum rounds disrupted the delicate balance of the snowpack, triggering an avalanche that buried 2 of the hunters. It wouldn't stop them, but it would force them to adapt to an unexpected situation. The 3rd hunter changed tactics immediately, its shield patterns becoming even more erratic as it processed this new behavior. Energy beams lanced from its crystalline form, capable of disrupting quantum states and reducing matter to its component particles. Kira moved unpredictably, using terrain features in ways the hunter's tactical databases couldn't anticipate. The Voidborn had studied human military doctrine, but they hadn't accounted for human creativity, the ability to improvise, to break patterns, to do the unexpected. Their learning algorithms are fascinating, Rodriguez commented through the neural link as he monitored the battle. They're trying to identify patterns in your movements, but you're not giving them enough consistent data to form predictions. That's because there aren't any patterns, Kira replied, setting up her next shot. Humans don't fight like machines. We don't follow perfect tactical doctrines. Sometimes we do things just because they might work. The buried hunters were emerging from the avalanche, their forms reconfiguring to better handle environmental hazards. All 3 began coordinating their movements, trying to establish a perfect containment pattern. They're still thinking like Voidborn, Kira observed. Even their hunter-killers can't escape their obsession with mathematical perfection. Every adaptation, every tactical change still follows their fundamental rules of symmetry. She fired again, this time using her quantum rounds to disrupt the crystalline structure of a nearby rock face. The resulting electromagnetic pulse temporarily scrambled the hunter's sensor arrays, creating a moment of confusion as their perfect coordination faltered. That's it, Rodriguez exclaimed. They're neural networks, they're trying to maintain perfect synchronization between units. Each hunter is part of a larger pattern. Kira smiled grimly. And patterns can be broken. Command, I need every quantum sniper in range to target these coordinates. Time to show these hunters why humans are the apex predators of Earth. The response came instantly as hidden snipers revealed their positions, firing simultaneously at the hunter group. The aliens' shields flared as they tried to adapt, their coordinated defense patterns becoming increasingly complex. But with each adaptation, with each attempt to create a more perfect defense, they became more predictable. They can't help themselves, Kira transmitted to her team. Even their countermeasures have to follow their rules of mathematical beauty. The more perfect they try to make their response, the more vulnerable they become. The hunters' crystalline forms began to fragment as multiple quantum rounds found their marks, exploiting microscopic flaws in their synchronized shield patterns. As the last hunter fell, its form dissolving into quantum instability, Kira allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. The Voidborn had created the perfect hunters, designed specifically to counter human tactics. But in doing so, they'd revealed their own greatest weakness, their inability to truly understand or adapt to human unpredictability. They could analyze human behavior, copy human tactics, even predict human strategies, but they couldn't replicate the one thing that made humans truly dangerous, the ability to throw away the rulebook entirely. The Voidborn Grand Ascender's vessel hung above the ruins of London like a crystalline cathedral, its surface dancing with shield patterns more complex than any humanity had yet encountered. In the Resistance Command Center beneath the Scottish Highlands, Kira studied the holographic display with Dr. Rodriguez and the assembled quantum sniper teams. "They're getting desperate," Rodriguez noted, analyzing the new shield configurations. "Look at these patterns, they're trying to incorporate chaos theory into their defenses while still maintaining their mathematical perfection. It's like they're trying to speak a language they don't understand." "Because they finally realized they're losing," Kira replied. "Every adaptation, every new defense they create still follows their fundamental rules. They can't break free of their own perfect patterns, even when those patterns are killing them." The tactical display showed the current state of the war. After the failure of their symmetry hunters, the Voidborn had withdrawn to their strongest hold points, consolidating their forces around massive conversion centers. But their retreats followed perfect geometric patterns, their defensive formations maintained flawless symmetry even in defeat. "Command, priority alert," the tactical AI announced. "The Grand Ascender is broadcasting on all frequencies." The holographic display shifted, showing the alien leader's crystalline form. Unlike other Voidborn, the Grand Ascender's body was a masterpiece of geometric perfection, each facet and angle precisely calculated to embody their species' mathematical ideals. "Humanity," the being's voice resonated through their neural networks. "Your resistance has shown remarkable ingenuity. You have exploited imperfections we did not believe could exist. But in doing so, you have proven yourselves worthy of true elevation." The display shifted, showing new Voidborn ships entering Earth's atmosphere. Their designs were different, more angular, more aggressive, decorated with patterns that seemed to shift between order and chaos. "We have created these vessels in your image," the Grand Ascender continued. "Imperfect by our standards, but perfectly adapted to counter your quantum weapons. Accept our final offer of elevation, or face extinction by your own principles of chaos." Kira studied the new ship's shield patterns. The Voidborn had indeed attempted to incorporate unpredictability into their designs, but something about them felt wrong. "They still don't understand," she realized. "They're trying to replicate chaos, but they're doing it mathematically. They're creating artificial imperfection using perfect equations." Rodriguez's eyes widened as he analyzed the data. "The new shields, they're not actually random. They're using incredibly complex algorithms to simulate unpredictability, but the patterns are still there. They're just hidden under more layers of mathematics. Because they can't conceive of true chaos," Kira said. "Their entire civilization is built on the idea that perfect mathematical patterns underlie everything. Even when they try to create imperfection, they do it perfectly." She turned to address the assembled sniper teams. "This is their last play. They're throwing away millions of years of cultural and technological evolution to try to beat us at our own game. But they're making their biggest mistake yet, they're pretending to be something they're not. The tactical display updated, showing void-born forces moving into attack positions worldwide. The new ships took point positions, their pseudo-chaotic shields rippling with complex patterns masquerading as randomness. All teams, execute final protocol, Kira ordered. Don't look for shield harmonics or pattern alignments. Look for the mathematics behind their artificial chaos. Find the equations they use to create imperfection. Quantum rifles powered up across the globe as humanity's snipers took aim at the Voidborn's last desperate gambit. The aliens had created their new weapons using perfect mathematical models of imperfection, but real chaos couldn't be modeled. Real unpredictability couldn't be calculated. Fire at will, Kira commanded, taking aim at the Grand Ascender's vessel. Multiple quantum rounds split reality itself as they sought their targets. The Voidborn's new shields tried to adapt, their simulated chaos shifting through countless pre-calculated patterns. But they couldn't adapt to true randomness, to shots that deliberately ignored mathematical precision in favor of human intuition. The Grand Ascender's perfect defenses shattered as Kira's round found its mark, its artificial chaos collapsing under the weight of genuine unpredictability. Across the planet, other Voidborn ships began to fall as humanity's quantum snipers exploited the fundamental flaw in their enemies' understanding. Impossible, the Grand Ascender's final transmission echoed through their neural networks. Your actions defy all mathematical models. Your chaos has no underlying pattern, no perfect equation to. The transmission cut off as the crystalline cathedral above London began to fall. The remaining Voidborn ships tried to retreat, but their movement still followed perfect geometric patterns, making them easy targets for humanity's now proven weapons. In the command center, Kira lowered her rifle as the tactical display showed Voidborn forces surrendering or fleeing Earth's atmosphere. They never understood, she said quietly. They thought they could elevate us by making us more like them, more perfect, more predictable. They didn't realize that our imperfection, our chaos, our ability to act without perfect mathematical reasoning, that's what makes us human. And that's what makes us strong. The war ended not with a perfect final battle, but with the messy, chaotic triumph of human unpredictability over alien perfection. The Voidborn had come to Earth seeking to elevate humanity to their level of mathematical precision. Instead, they learned that true elevation sometimes meant embracing imperfection, accepting chaos, and understanding that the most beautiful patterns were often the ones that couldn't be calculated at all.